opportunity. So understand this, folks. I know that you guys envy guys like Steve and Tony because they get access to the team, they get to talk to the coaches, they get to go to practice and all that business. But they have to be very strategic in what they're asking, because at Big Ten Media Days, you may get 1 to 2 shots. And that's for the entire league at the big podium. And then for these side sessions, there's going to be, as these guys could describe better than I, because I was only there one time for Big Ten Media Days, is that you've got, depending on the matchups, meaning what coaches are going at the same time. Of course, Harbaugh was completely swamped, and Ryan Day always is. You've got 100 media around them, and you've got Greg Schiano with 12 or whatever the case might be. That's just the way it is. And if they end up opposite one of the big boys at the same time, then you may have less than that, because everybody's focused on, except for their local beat writers, on the big guns. So there's only a couple shots to ask. So Steve, we'll start with you in terms of what you will ask. What are your most important questions to hit up, not just Ryan Day, across the Big Ten? And Tony, I'll ask you the same. Then I've got a follow-up that's more of a fantasy type question.
Well, yeah, I think that these events, and I've been going to them for, I guess this will be my 30th consecutive year attending the Big Ten football preseason media days, kind of evolved over time. And, we used to get the coach at the podium, which was the televised part, for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then you would also get the coach for a full hour at a breakout table. That I haven't seen the schedule yet, whether or not we're going to get a full hour with Ryan Day in addition to the podium. But, because of COVID, it's changed some of the protocols. They didn't want people to be sitting at a table, a round banquet table right, against a person, basically. So they've gone to these more mini press conference type things. And they're still good, but not maybe as good as the old days, where you could have a conversation type thing with somebody you're sitting right next to and really get into some good topics. So you kind of break down your thought of what you're going for here between stuff about this team, the off season, the coaching changes, different things that have happened and transpired, and then the big picture type things like the future of the sport, the direction of the program, recruiting, all these other, 5 mile up in the air topics that you try and get into. So it's kind of a blend between those type questions, some focused on the current season and the current team, and then others just focused kind of on the coach's outlook, the coach's philosophy, the coach's experiences, anything of that nature, I suppose. I think Ryan Day is going to be besieged by Michigan questions, having lost to them 3 years in a row. And what does that mean? Does that, I'm sure, does that put added significance on this season? You'll get those hush tone type questions, that we love to hear from our friends. But, I think it's going to be a blend and a mix. Obviously, the offensive line is going to be a heavy topic. The quarterback battle is going to be a heavy topic. Splitting reps between the two running backs is going to be a good topic. Having Chip Kelly now as the offensive coordinator, what they're going to do, on defense with Jim Knowles, what's he got for an encore after a great year last year defensively? What do they have in mind? So those will be some of the bigger topics, I suppose. And, maybe a little bit about Jeremiah Smith, the true freshman wide receiver. Seems like he's ready to break all of the Ohio State freshman wide receiver records in 2 weeks, to start the season. So, is what's going to happen with that. So that'll give you an idea, kind of the lay of the land as we go into this thing, that it's a lot about the current team, a lot about, perhaps what's transpired the last 3 years, and a lot of big picture ideas, NIL, all these other things. How does that impact recruiting? No one really, we haven't gotten to the point where we're talking actual money dollars with these people just yet. But I think as time goes on, um, it'll become like the NFL, where you're slotting guys for the mid-level exception, and the NBA with the Larry Bird rights and all these other things, where it gets all the way down to dollars and cents. Perhaps one day that's where we'll be with college football too.
Just imagine the outrage from one segment of the coaches if one particular coach offers a 3-star, like way too much money. Now you've just completely ruined the market.
Yeah, you the salary cap. Yeah.
But the media days are interesting because it can be the best opportunity to actually talk to a coach. Like you could just, or a player, like there are so many players with nobody around them. They're just sitting there for 45 minutes on their phones. And sometimes you feel bad about, like, I don't want to bother you while you're just scrolling Twitter or Instagram or whatever, because there's nobody talking to the left guard from Northwestern, but they've got to bring somebody. Coaches, there's so much coverage now. It's really hard to just go get a coach and talk to them, and you're still fighting for questions. But like with Day or Harbaugh, you can sit there and be there for 45 minutes, and you're trying to get stuff in, and you've got to get the question in without trying to cut the coach off, but knowing that your other people are going to cut him off. And it's some people are better at it than others. A lot of people are better at it than me in terms of just getting in there. But I'm sitting there the entire time trying to take notes as well. So you're typing and not necessarily ready to ask a question. But a lot of the questions that you're going to ask are going to be asked have been asked, so you already know the answer. So some of this is what has changed since the spring, what is new, what needs answered, what can you talk about. Every single Michigan question has been asked. That's not going to stop them from being asked again. But you got to find the questions that haven't been answered that you don't necessarily know the answer to as well. I think is interesting, because a lot of stuff you're going to ask these coaches, you already know the answer to, and maybe that's what you're looking for, and that's fine. But it's a lot of it is some swinging and missing as well, because they're going to no sell some of these things. Like Dale'll be open and Dale'll be honest about Michigan, but he's not going to like get too in the weeds on it. So there'll be different things that go on. But I still remember my first one was like 2006, and as Steve said, you're just sitting around tables with a coach, and they're all going on at the same time or whatever, and sitting with Jim Tressel for, I don't know, like 60 minutes, 90 minutes. Just there's probably, I don't know, 8 to 12 of us around him. Now, what's the number of people around Day or Jim Harbaugh now? Is it 40? Is it 30, 40 in those tables and then standing around him? It's really, really difficult to get more than 1 or 2 questions in a row, because you might get the leeway to get a follow-up, but not necessarily.
What I remember about last year with Harbaugh was, I remember where I was standing. I remember I got a question in, and like Tony is explaining, I think most of us that have done this for a while, and I haven't done it it's been a long time since I've been in this forum on a regular basis, but back in the day, you try to be aggressive, but still a professional and still courteous, not a jerk, but you got to be somewhat aggressive to get your question in. And I couldn't even tell you what I asked Harbaugh. I got a question in, but I could tell you what I remember from Harbaugh was that somebody else who was standing near me, I think they were right next to me, asked him something, and he just had that glazed look in his eyes. And then he finally paused after the question was asked and admitted, he's like, I didn't hear anything you just said. My mind was totally off somewhere else. I didn't even hear what you said. Can you say all that again?
And
it was typical Harbaugh. It was just,
he was a real treat.
Yeah, I've stood around him. I've tried to stay there for the 45 minutes or whatever, but it was kind of exhausting, because there aren't necessarily questions and answers. It's not very conversational. This was before I think things were going good, so I think that the tone changed. But when things were not going great, it was kind of just uncomfortable to be around it and knowing that the questions aren't being answered. And so you just find different guys. Like, I think PJ Fleck is always good. I like the little rivalry that Scott Frost and PJ Fleck had for a little while there, where Scott Frost talked about we're not into sloganeering, and Minnesota very much is. And so some of those interesting things like that, and getting to talk to new coaches for the first time, I think is always cool too.
How much are the Michigan people going to have to deal with questions about sanctions and, vacating the championship and different things like that? That's a question I think that is probably going to dog a few of them. I think the coach and the players who are there.
I don't know that anybody outside of the Ohio State sphere is even asking any of those questions anymore of Michigan. Like,
yeah,
I think it seems like everybody has just moved on in terms of that. Was anybody asked at the MAC media days about Central Michigan? I don't know. Has that happened yet? Is that all by Zoom? I don't know.
I was impressed with Matt Rule. I thought he was extremely conversational and very transparent to a healthy degree. I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing, but actually really expounds upon answers and even gives you way beyond what you asked.
That was my
Wayne
first time
Taylor.
talking to him last year. He was good.
Wayne Taylor, thank you so much for the contribution. That's very kind of you. As always, very informative. Wayne, thank you so much for the comment and for the contribution here on Buckeyes Live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm thinking about our next show already. 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Buckeyes Live, except next week. That's why you subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live, because we will have to round these guys up in the midst of Big Ten Media Days. So whenever we need to do that, we will do so. But we will have a show next week at some point. All right, Tony, we'll circle around to this one. If you get these coaches, you get these players unlimited, no holds barred. You don't have to be concerned with who else is sitting there, and you get an actual conversation. Who would you pin down? Not that I'm going to limit that, but who would you really like to talk to, and what would you ask them?
Well, I think, covering Ohio State, there are plenty of things to talk about, not just Ohio State, but also Michigan and everything that happened last year and the things that have happened the past few years, and what, kind of like the SI thing. How deep did it go? Like, how much have you known for how long about what was going on at Michigan? That sort of thing. And of course, you get honest answers about Tony Alford leaving and things of that nature, because there's so much human drama there as well that, we hear bits and pieces from other flies on the wall, but it would be an interesting conversation to get it straight from the source, unedited, unfiltered, that sort of thing. So I think that's where I would go. But there are stories, and what Braun from Northwestern, to talk to him about everything that he's gone through, and you're there for a few months before you're the head coach. Like stories like that are interesting, and the pressure that there's more pressure than just at Ohio State, like the pressure that is going on with Ryan Walters at Purdue, like just things like that of just existing with that. And then I think the other thing I would ask is, did you sign up for this? When you got into coaching, did you sign up for this? And I think one of the questions that I was thinking about yesterday is, like, if you had known that this is what it would become, would you still make that decision today? Like, would you still go into coaching, or would you go into coaching but maybe take a different path? Because so many coaches now are basically administrators, and it's like educators that go into teaching and eventually become administrators and things like. Is this what you got into? Did you want to be an administrator? Did you want to be a CEO, or did you want your hands in the dirt? That sort of thing. And I think every coach will tell you they got into coaching to coach, but eventually you're seen as I don't know, lesser if you don't continue to strive and climb the ladder. Like, oh, you're just a lifer, you're just a lifelong position coach. Why don't you want more from yourself? And it's like, I have everything I could ever want doing what I'm doing right now. Why would I change it?
Yeah, I think Tony raises an interesting question. And of course, we're going to get the commissioner, Tony Petiti, as well. And I think obvious question for him 9 months down the road is, exactly what did you see and why did you penalize Michigan, and what's taken the NCAA so long to follow your lead and drop the hammer on these outlaws? What's going on? I think that's one. Two, from the commissioner's standpoint, what does the future hold? Where is this thing headed? You're got your TV deals basically set in stone, and you're making $1 billion a year on TV and playoff and championship game and everything else you can monetize. Like, where is this headed? I mean, how did they arrive at 20 or 22% for the athletes or whatever it's supposed to be? Like, it seems kind of an arbitrary figure. I don't know. I don't know. There's all kinds of questions, and I'm sure, again, those are the big picture things. And then I agree with Tony. I think you go to each coach and you just say, what's your take on this? And they're all going to have a different viewpoint on it, because if you're at Illinois or Indiana and suddenly you've got a pot of money that allows you to go buy players that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to get, then that's probably a good thing for you. If you're at Ohio State and you can buy players away from Alabama, as they have, 2 or 3 guys from the state of Alabama away from Alabama, that's a good thing for you. But then you turn around and you watch that Oregon has got even a bigger pot of money, and they're buying players out from underneath of you, including one from Ohio. Is this such a great system? I don't know, all the hand wringing that goes with that. So, are we going to lose out on the Big Ten championship because Oregon outbid us? And yet our payroll is 5 times what Indiana and Illinois put out. So, what are you a have? Are you a have not? Are you, a prisoner of inertia in this new system? I mean, I don't know. There's so much. I get questions. I'm besieged by questions in my chat each week. Everybody wants me to tell them, how is this going to look? How are we going to be competitive? Well, I think you're going to be. I don't know. I don't know. What are the courts going to say about your new model? Are they going to agree? Or are they going to say, no, this doesn't pass muster either? None of your models ever have. So why should this one? So I don't know. It's going to get a little dicey, I think. And then, prepare for some turbulence.
So while we continue on this path, I'm going to extend on something that Tony was bringing to the table. And he brought up the name Ryan Walters. You could fill in the blank with a number of guys. So I think there's this thought process among most college football fans that it's only the Urban Meyers and the Nick Sabans that just want to win with every ounce in their being, and that does not exist for anyone who doesn't achieve at that level. Well, I think all these guys are extremely competitive. They may not have the skill or may not have the leadership ability to get to that level, or did not get the right break or the right avenue or the right path. But yeah, you bring up like a Ryan Walters. He's still running a multi-million-dollar football operation. The pressure isn't what it is elsewhere, but the expectations are different, and he doesn't have the resources, but he's still running a big-time football program. So if he, just using him as an example, and we could fill in the blank with all sorts of guys, if he burns with that much passion to win and is that competitive, when he shows up at the football facility every day, doing everything he can to succeed, but having this in the back of his mind that I can only do so much here, I have limitations. It's not like I have thoughts of winning a Big Ten championship, being a major player on the national stage. At some point, is that a little debilitating, thinking, I just want to win half my games, just want to survive, just want to make it, just want to not be embarrassed.
You want to do well enough to get the next job. And that's what the Purdue is. That's what, that's why I say, like, Iowa landing a lifer, Michigan State had a lifer, Oklahoma State has found a lifer. Like if these programs that, and I guess they're higher level than a Purdue or an Indiana, certainly, but you need that lifer. I thought Nebraska had it with Scott Frost, and he was not the answer. And I don't know if Matt Rule is. I think he's the answer as long as he wants to be. But like somebody like that, how long is he going to be around? I think with Ryan Walters and guys like him, now you have you're not going to win the Big Ten, but you can make the playoffs. Like you can vie for the playoffs. I think guys like Ryan Walters and everybody in the West had thoughts that we can win the West, and then whatever happens in the Big Ten championship, maybe you sneak something out there. But now that that's gone, you still have the playoff opportunity. So you only need to be one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the Big Ten, which I think is an achievable thing. But also, I think even Purdue's not lying to themselves. They know this is a stepping stone job. A lot of places are a stepping stone job. I think maybe Illinois has their lifer now in Brett Bielema because he's gone and failed elsewhere. And I think if you can get that rebound guy, they're a lot more likely to stick around because they've grabbed for the brass ring at Arkansas and fell flat. Now you come back to the Big Ten's Arkansas, and maybe you're going to be happy with there. So, and Walters being a younger guy, like he certainly wants more and more and more. But the players have the same attitude, though.